Hey everyone, I'm Larry Walsh, and this is Changing Channels. Across the industry, vendors are looking for ways to drive more recurring revenue. They're adopting subscription-based models. They're going on more of a services-based sales model. They're trying to drive more of their customers through partners to go on this ongoing payment schedule. And there's good reasons for this, is that through recurring revenue comes greater levels of predictability and what money is going to come in and when. And that also helps lead to higher levels of profitability. Now, this is something that started many, many years ago with managed services. They started out based on this model. It moved into the cloud, services. Cloud services has always been built around this type of model and has permeated ever since to software, to other types of professional services, and even the hardware guys are looking for ways to get in on this annual recurring revenue model. Now, it's not easy, particularly for companies that have been around for a while. They have to transition away from what they've already had into this new services-based and subscription model. That's not an easy trick. And even companies that are starting out, born in the cloud or born in services, they also have to go out and convince partners to buy into the model and get their customers to buy into this model as well. Uh, Again, it's not an easy task, but it's one that can be done, and it's being seen right now at Cato Networks. Now, Cato Networks started off in network services, and they've pivoted to SASE, which is Secure Access Services Edge, and they are really driving forward. They just announced that they've passed $200 million in annual recurring revenue, and if that isn't a great milestone, it's also to say that they doubled up their recurring revenue in under 2 years, and the momentum is going in the direction. So we decided that we reach out to Cato and find out what's going on over there. What are they doing with their channel, with their partners to drive more annual recurring revenue? So we invited Frank Rauch, their channel chief, to come on and talk about it. And many of you know Frank, or at least have heard of him. He's been around the industry for a long time. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience, but even he is learning things along the way. He has a lot of great interesting things to say. So let's get on to our conversation with Frank Rauch. This is Changing Channels. Let's get into it. So with that, welcome to Changing Channels, Frank Rauch.
Hey, Larry, it's great to be with you.
Frank, you've been at Cato now for about 18 months or so. You left Checkpoint to take on this position. You've been at Checkpoint for a number of years and seemingly doing a great job over there. But you came into Cato, which was just starting the run it's on now. What has changed since you came on board? What have you done with the Cato Channel program and the partners since you've joined?
I think, when Shlomo and Alon and others were gracious enough to let me join the Cato team, they were asking me to scale the channel, to be able to mature the channel, and to be able to differentiate the channel. So, meaning that, we were relying on the agents, we were relying on the TSDs. By the way, we still are. They absolutely are great partners. There's no doubt about it. However, as the company matures, as you start to gain market share, as you start to gain ARR, then obviously other routes to market come in. And some of the routes to market that I've been focused on are the service providers around the world, some of the worldwide integrators, which could be larger partners or true GSIs in all three theaters, as well as some of the regional integrators, more on the resale side. And most recently, I've been doing a little bit of work with AWS as well.
Well, I mean, all this came because Cato did make a pivot to the secure access service edge market. I mean, and in fact, look at your background. It says we are SASE. So, I mean, that had a lot to do with it as well.
I don't know, Larry, and I don't want to disagree with you, but I think, basically this is one of these weird situations. And I'd love to tell you, hey, I'm the greatest channel leader in the world. But that's not what made this happen. This made this happen because I joined a great company that had a great strategy that stuck with that strategy through all the pundits, basically telling Shlomo and Gore that they were wrong, that basically portfolio was going to win, not platform. Platform started to win. Basically, some of the strongest companies in the industry, which we both know, started to falter a little bit, started to open up the market, and the partners were generally looking for something new, whether that was managed services, whether it was platform play, or whether it was to get out from a race to the bottom, which some of those companies were offering.
Well, I mean, I think you're right, though. I mean, I think there's still an ongoing debate here, though, Frank, about whether portfolio or platform is the way to go. I've had the question posed to me, does everything have to be a platform? And my response to that is that you can be a platform if it makes sense, but you shouldn't force yourself into the platform mode if it doesn't make sense.
Basically, there is something to be said right now for bringing security and networking, SOC, NOC, managed services, etc., together in a single platform. I don't think that I don't think that screams proprietary. And by the way, even if you look at it as a single platform, we have plenty of customers that are using CrowdStrike for EPP. So but it's that core platform around that core wire that makes this thing work.
So, look, let's focus in on what you're doing here,
Yeah,
because because
that's what I like to talk about.
Frank, so those listening in, Frank and I have known each other for a long time, and I can tell you that this is the absolute truth. Frank is not lying. He is his favorite subject. So
Sure. Well, at least we agree on one thing, Larry.
we agree on a lot of things.
I know we do.
But like you guys, Cato recently announced that you surpassed $200 million in annual recurring revenue. This is a product of annual recurring revenue is the product of a subscription-based or recurring revenue model.
Sure.
What are you doing? Because you mentioned this already, is that you had to depend, you had been working with agents, you had been selling networking services. But what changed? What is now driving this growth? Because it's not just that you surpassed $200 million, it's that you doubled your ARR in under 2 years.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's basically it's beyond a channel too. I think we made some great choices in the sales leadership that's leading our field sales, and I think that's paying off. I think basically the branding that we've done to be able to get Cato's name out here is paying off. I think the market's cooperating. I think Gartner is validating. Frost and Sullivan is validating. Gigon is validating that not only is there a market, not only is this thing that Shlomo and the people that were with him in 2015 could see, but it's here. It's here now. And maybe your point, it's not for everybody, but it's for a lot of people. And then you look at the channel side of it, and you work, channels better than I do. But once you start to shorten sales cycles, once you start to basically raise the ASP, once you start to be able to give them more money on the product, more margin on the product, and also favorable renewal rates, and to be able to offer them managed services, professional services, and more importantly, and this came up today because we had a Ask Me Anything with Shlomo. What came up is what it really means to be a channel first company. And I can tell you what it means at Cato. What it means is two things. One, the design. So I don't care if you're in a board meeting, I don't care if you're in a product meeting or a marketing meeting or finance meeting, whatever you may want to be in, you're going to hear channel mentioned, and channel will have a seat at the table. So that's number one. Number two is actually executing against it. And we executed that we are 100% channel. So we had this debate today in the spirit of full transparency in terms of what's a more powerful statement, 100% channel or channel first. I think it can be argued both ways. But if I was a partner, I would want channel to be at the center of a company just like it is at Cato, just like SASE is at Cato.
Is that something that you inherited, or is it something that you've just been amplifying since you arrived at the company?
So I'm going to give you an answer that it's neither. That is something that I've been extracting. Yeah, it's, I mean, your point, answering your question directly, it's always been there. But, I think extracting that value and to be able to operationalize it and to be able to pull the various stakeholders, which we call the senior management team, SMT together on a weekly basis and rally them around a channel, I think it's made all the difference in the world.
Is that the difference, though? Is that the difference maker that's made this growth possible through partners? Because when we work with channel economics, when we work with other vendors and they start looking at how do they build out their annual recurring revenue model, how do they get the partners on board? There's a lot of over rotating on thinking. They do often encounter resistance from partners that may not want to give up their legacy transaction models where they have more certainty in what they're getting paid. What was what was the catalyst, or what was the thing that you got the partners on board with this when you say, yeah, you're showing them that they're going to make more money, but what did it take to do that?
But so, I mean, partners is a wide definition.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how many telco companies there are or service providers that want to acquire more CapEx right now. So meaning that it's not really a hard argument to make. So basically, if you say low barrier to entry, immediate scale, ubiquitous market, telco, retail, manufacturing, etc., and a company that will give you a real more than fair deal, a company that will give you services and basically a differentiated solution where you don't have five of our favorite friends that have a bunch of letter acronyms next to them piling on every deal.
Is this meaning, though, is that over the time that you've been evangelizing the model, you've been evangelizing the value of Cato, does this motivate the partners to go out there and not just capture deals, but to actually create them? Are
Yeah.
they creating the opportunities for you and that's driving this ARR?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a great point. So when I was being recruited by Cato, there were two things I didn't believe. Even though I had the numbers in front of me, I didn't believe Glassdoor rankings of Cato. I didn't believe that channel created percentage of the business. I was wrong on both counts. They were both true. They were both true numbers, and they reflect the company. I mean, I don't want to get into the exact numbers, but I can tell you the percentage that is created, not fulfilled, just pure created by the channel, is double to triple any other company that I've been with in my career.
What's driving the partners to do that, though? Because this is something that the other people in your roles, other vendors, they struggle with, is getting that partner activation, those partners to actually wake up in the morning and go hit the streets.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna pick on Checkpoint, but I think it's a good analogy. I think it's a good analogy. So basically I leave VMware. I joined Checkpoint. Call up Joe Koenig, Jim Kavanaugh, Tyler, whoever. And basically I said, hey, we got a great solution. You know what? Most of the people politely said, well, yeah, but we have that kind of category covered. We don't need another firewall, physical firewall, for example. Even though yours might be faster, even though it might be better or whatever, there's not enough differentiation. I didn't get one objection like that with Cato. Cato was so different that the use cases were so compelling that, and when I got here, this is another great point. When I got here, basically partners were reacting. They were reacting to various demand. Either their customer would say something that would trigger the conversation about Cato. They would mention Cato directly. Basically, some intent data would be kind of magnifying a Cato opportunity, et cetera. But now we're in a whole different space. We have our partners hunting because now we know we have the maturity to understand what their targets look like. So it's a very different conversation that when you're having something, well, we're kind of better than they are, or maybe I don't know, maybe you can make 3 more points or something like that. Then when you say to a partner, you can hunt freely. The deal reg will be upheld. And by the way, here's the analytics to hunt. That's kind of where we are right now.
You mentioned this, and like I said earlier, Frank and I have known each other for longer than we wanted to admit. So I think, Frank, you and I first met when you were at HP. You know, followed you around when you were at VMware. You went to Checkpoint. Cato is a much different company than the companies that you were at before.
Sure.
What have you learned over the last 18 months that you didn't know before, you hadn't considered before?
Well, so I've seen this before, and I had the opportunity and the pleasure to see something like this in the early VMware days, with the Gelsinger, with Carl Eschenbach, with the board members that we had over there. Once you have the leadership and you have the charismatic leadership, and you attract the best talent in the industry around you, you can do anything. You can absolutely do anything. Now, when the sales community actually believes that you have that circle of leadership, I mean, you know, there's not a room that Shlomo Kramer walks in that he doesn't get a standing ovation. He is revered, but he's revered for all the right reasons. And I'll put it to you very simply, and then I'll shut up and answer your next question. But I've worked for companies, I've worked for CEOs where it's all about who's right. With Shlomo Kramer and his leadership team, it's about what's right.
Yeah, you know what? And look, I remember Shlomo going back to when he was at Checkpoint.
Sure.
You know, I mean, and so for those who don't know, Shlomo Kramer was one of the co-founders of Checkpoint once upon a time, and Checkpoint did revolutionize computer security, network security. And you're right. I mean, he's a thought leader. He's a true innovator he's the epitome of an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I wanted to touch in on this though, because driving that type of annual recurring revenue growth that you're experiencing now, momentum comes, momentum goes, and you've seen this happen before, Frank. Is that you go through ebbs and flows. What are you and Cato going to do in order to keep this momentum going? Do you see this going in perpetuity on its own inertia, or do you think that this is something that you're going to have to make adjustments for over time?
Okay. No, I think it's a good question. I'll answer it in a few different ways if I could. So first of all, I think the momentum is extremely sustainable. The reason that I think the momentum is sustainable is the time to transition. So basically, if you really believe platform is going to win, and we absolutely believe platform is going to win. I mean, I'm going to use one of Shlomo's quotes if I could. You know, going from platform to portfolio, going from portfolio to platform is about as easy as unscrambling an omelet. And and it's very, very true. So meaning that there's a gap to be able to catch up. This is not a company that sits on its laurels whatsoever. This isn't, you know, our meetings aren't, hey, we got this. Our meetings are go, go, go. And how do we go faster? So I think that gap's going to accelerate rather than close. That's number one. Number two, we got a great board, we got Greylock, we got Lightspeed, we have other people that are on the board that are giving us great guidance. We've had great funding. We have great financials outside of the funding, et cetera. And you know, I mean, look, Shlomo was on, I think he was on CNBC. or money, etc. Even the people that we're interviewing on that show, I mean, they got it almost immediately. So and then I'll address the market. So I think the market's coming to us. I think it's coming to us for a few different ways. One, the hackers aren't going away. Um, and it's not like you can find them in tunnels or something like that. They're just massive. They're all over the place. Two, networking and security is coming together everywhere outside of maybe some of the biggest federal agencies or maybe some of the biggest banks. Because, basically, if you breach one or the other one fails, it doesn't really matter because you're down. Either way. Putting them together makes a lot of sense. The final thing is, this is one of the best solutions that can be delivered by managed services. And why managed services, regardless of who wins the election in November or anything like that, managed services, there's still 4.5 million security jobs open right now. And RSA is categorized, I think it's like 4,800 companies as security companies. So what chance does even a mid-sized company have of getting this right without a vendor that can offer this as a managed service with partners combining security and networking? So I think it's sustainable.
So Frank, final question. I just want to, ask what advice would you give to one of your peers that's looking at the same objectives that you and Cato are and trying to either build or transition into a recurring revenue model and driving this annual recurring revenue?
I would say get aligned with your senior leadership team. And when I say your senior leadership team, I mean your real senior leadership team. Once you're aligned with that, then be able to analyze, what's good for the company. Why do you want to get into an ARR model? What do you expect? What are the metrics? What does great look like? Then to be able to go out and actually listen to your channel partners and not have the chug and hug or the golf games or whatever, and just kind of have a serious discussion where their CFO participates and find out what barriers, if any, exist on an ARR type of offering to those partners, and see what you can do to find the middle of a solution that works for both sides.
Good advice. Frank, really appreciate you joining us yet again. Great having you here.
Larry, anytime. Thank you very much.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Changing Channels. I want to thank our guest, Frank Rauch, the Global Channel Chief at Cato Networks, for joining us. And again, I want to thank all of you for joining us here in Changing Channels. We do this podcast and everything else we do here at Channelnomics to help make the channel a better place for everyone. If you like what we're doing here, please hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends, and check out all the wealth of information we have at Channelnomics. Until next time, I'm Larry Walsh.